it was pretty interesting over in the Dakota, in South Dakota, there was or Nebraska, I can't remember, I guess, there was a wonderful thunderstorm where there was a, a round flat cloud with a cumulus cloud stuck underneath it, and then a round flat cloud underneath it. And there was just this raging lightning storm going on right within the cloud, and it was all by itself in the sky. It was kind of almost like the clear sky with this one just raging thunderstorm that kind of followed me for about 4 hours in a row. That was really a gorgeous and kind of magical situation as well. Oh, and then I kind of went into a second dive. And yeah, today I think I've turned the corner. I'm moving my way up to positive land here finally.
Good.
Yeah,
Very good.
it was definitely a taxing event.
Yeah, so we'll hop right into that. So where did the idea come from for you to tackle this?
Well, it's really interesting because last year I did the Transamerica bike race and ended up in second on that. And I did that event solely for me. I mean, it was a very selfish, like I've always wanted to do the race across America. I didn't have the crew, didn't have the time, didn't have the money for that. But I found Transamerica. I was like, wow, that's my event. So I did it, and I really did it just for me. Well, when I got done, I mean, everybody, literally almost everyone that talked to me about it said, "Boy, that was really inspirational. That was you're such an inspiration." And finally, I started asking people, I mean, how are you inspired? And and uh, and I got a lot of different answers, but some of the answers was, I don't know, but I just am. I just want to, So um, in the process of my short ultra distance bike racing career, this is my fifth event. Um, I felt I needed one more thing to do, and I started looking around at like the Tour Divide or the Transcontinental, and those are really tough races, but they were similar to what I had done. And then I kind of thought back and I was like, gee, I've always wanted to do the 50 states, the 48 states. Maybe that would make sense. And I looked it up, and sure enough, there was a woman that had the record from Italy, um, and uh, and it was like that seems like what I want to do. That just makes sense. It's something I can do on my own. And as it turned out, with COVID and everything, it was really about the only thing I could have done on my own this year. But anyway, to get back to your question, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, um, I said, this time I have to do something for other people. And after I sold my original business, I was starting work on another one that was really helping people, that would ultimately help people. How do I identify their purpose, their life purpose, and help them um, make a living in a fulfilling fashion. Okay, was really
Yeah.
where this online tool was going to go. And I backburnered it in order to do the Transamerica. And I said, well, you know what? I could combine these two things because all these people are being inspired by these long rides. Anyone that's inspired, well, do something about it. Set a goal. Set one goal, just the one thing that you can do to live a more fulfilling life. And through the research I've done and so forth, by definition, if you do something that's fulfilling for yourself, chances are really, really good it's going to be good for your world around you. So it's a real positive for the world. And so this time I brought it up and I said, well, okay, I'm going to start that company that I was working on called Actualize, and really tie the two components together and really ask anybody that's inspired by the fact that somebody just rode 48 states in a month to set their own goal, whatever it might be, in whatever aspect of their life, and just see if they can move one step closer to making their life more fulfilling as well.
Very cool. That's a great story. It's really, and it's I mean, like, I don't know, 36 days, 599 hours.
Yeah,
That's pretty incredible.
actually, it was just shy of 31 days. I
Just
don't
at
know.
31. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The unofficial time was 30 days, 22 hours, and 28 minutes. 30, 22, 28. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy. So what was your day to day then? Kind of go into a little bit of what was it like to be on your bike? What were your kind of your day to day goals, and what got you up in the morning to start that next
yeah,
leg?
well, it was interesting because when I started the race, I really wasn't ready to go. The amount of effort necessary to do a supported ride is 10 times greater than an unsupported ride. And this is the first time I had done a supported ride. And it was the first time everyone on my crew had done a supported ride. So we were working feverishly for months, and the last couple of weeks every day. I mean, I didn't sleep more than 6 hours for the 2 weeks prior to the start of the race because I was getting ready for the race. This is the time where you're supposed to be banking that stuff, and I got started, and I really felt bad, to be honest. It's like every time I've ever seen an event when someone isn't ready at the start, they aren't going to do it. They are. And then 3 days in, I had an accident, a bad accident, and wiped out my bike. And then 2 days later, I took out my front tire blew when I was going down a mountain at about 40 miles an hour, and just barely escaped disaster there too. And it was just like, this is not going the way I want it to go. But but I do have that mentality of you just got to do it, and it's going to happen, and you just got to keep going. And so kind of work through those things. And yeah, every day was just go. And there wasn't an option of like, okay, I'm going to take some more time off, or I'm going to rest, or whatever. It was just, no, you got to do it. I did set a goal for myself shortly after that first little fiasco, after that 5, 6, 7 first days, of at least 220 miles a day. So it's like, okay, I got to go 220 before I can rest. And that pushed me quite a few days that I would have otherwise probably wanted to stop a little bit sooner than that. And then, of course, there were the days where things were going well, and I was feeling good, and it was just like, okay, let's keep going, and maybe ride through the night, do the next day. And there was a couple. I piled up a 500 mile and a 600 mile day, and those just are incredible ways to to bank the miles, if you will. So yeah, my get up and go was just it was a matter of I should be on my bike. If I'm not on my bike, I'm not racing, and I'm here to race. So and I had some good crew. I had some really good crew, couple of fellow bike racers that have done the North Star bike race with me, came and crewed with me, and they weren't going to let me just rest around either. So that helped quite a bit. They were ready to get me going at every turn.
And what was the interaction like through the towns that you rode through? I mean, it was pretty like lickety split through the small towns across America that you rode through. But were there any things that like really memorable, or things that you didn't think that you were going to experience that you did?
It was pretty interesting because of the COVID situation. We had heard some kind of negative feedback from some potential people that had heard that we were going to do it, about, gee, how can you do this? Spreading COVID. You're going to all 48 states. How can? And I was like, well, no, we don't want to be known for any of that. And so we took the approach of kind of shelter in place in our RV. So we slimmed down our crew to 2 people at a time. And the 2 people plus myself basically lived out of the RV the whole way. So that really minimized our human contact with people en route, which was unfortunate in many regards, but it was the only legitimate thing for us to feel like we could do and really not be causing any issues, or spreading any virus or whatever. So the crew and myself, the only people I talked to was the crew. Really, other than people that came up in cars and waved and honked and and cheered on the side of the road, which were awesome. Pretty much the people I saw were my crew. However, there were 2. There was a videographer and a photographer that volunteered for this trip as well, and they were obviously taking some awesome video and stuff that's available online on Facebook, and they actually made a point of stopping with mask on and so forth, and talking to people in each of the states in the union, and they gathered some fantastic interviews about what people are doing to actualize themselves and so forth, which will be coming out in a movie they're going to be putting together about that. So that was very interesting. But my personal experience with a lot of people in the towns was get through quick and keep on going.
And did you have pretty good weather across your trip, or were you dry for the most part, or did you have any rainy days?
Yeah, we had anytime you're out on the road for 30 days in a row, you're going to run into something. And we started off in the rain. The start of the race was in the rain. Um, we hit 3 days coming up the East Coast, 3 days in a row where I got stuck right under a thunderstorm, like just short term. Um, which was not so good. And the worst weather we had of all was in South Dakota with a huge head side wind for the entire way across. And it was like, pounding away at, 6, 8, 9 miles an hour for literally, 16, 18 hours in a row. That was really ugly and of course, demotivating, but not unexpected. But I got to say, overall, for all of the long trips I've taken and races I've done, the weather was reasonably positive in my favor. There was a lot of slight, light wind tailwinds on many stretches, and you just normally don't get that many, especially when you're doing a big W across the country. I mean, so I would say overall the weather was more favorable for me this time than I would have normally expected. Of course, and the other nice thing was when you have an RV, it was kind of nice because we hit some really nasty weather a couple times, and like a big thunderstorm would come and literally have the RV pull up behind me, jump into the van, sit down, eat my dinner, or even take a coffee nap. The storm was done, hop back on my bike and go when it stopped raining. And we were able to do that 2 or 3 times. And, when you do that, you almost feel like you're cheating the system because it's like, hey, I just missed the whole storm and still got some dinner to boot or whatever. So that was pretty nice. We felt pretty good on that.
Good. So what would be, for those that are inspired by what you did and want to do their own version of that, or maybe even tackle and try to beat your record, kind of where do people start for that? Like so to get into that ultra cycling, what you just did, like what would you like say to someone like me that like the furthest ride I've ever done is 100 miles. So
that's a good ride. That's a dang good ride. You can do 100, you can do 1,000. So, well, first of all, the most important thing in my mind, if you want to be an ultra distance racer, is that you gotta love to ride your bike. I mean, sitting on my bike for, anywhere from 16 to 18 hours a day, you just gotta love to ride your bike. And if you don't love that, then don't even bother worrying about the rest of it. I've biked my entire life in terms of commuting. I've done some touring on and off throughout my life and so forth. So I've always enjoyed it, but I knew nothing about training. I knew nothing about nutrition. I knew nothing about sleep. And really, I started off by getting a good coach, Greg Grandgeorge out of Iowa, who has coached a lot of good ultra athletes and is phenomenal. So that was number one, probably the best choice I made. Secondly, I spent a lot of time really researching sleep and sleep cycles and how to use sleep cycles. So for instance, on this trip, I never once woke up by an alarm. I always woke up by determining when I was going to wake up before I went to sleep. I also spent a lot of time with nutrition, something I've spent with most of my life in terms of trying to figure out what to eat, when to eat, how to eat. And then, so sleep and nutrition is key. And then getting out and riding. There's arguments around, is it distance training that does it or interval training? And it's really some of both. You need a little bit of power and you need a lot of endurance and a lot of, ability to recoup after a ride. So I was talking to a good friend of mine near the end of the ride to try to stay awake, and she's going to get ready to do the Transamerica next year. And I said, when we've done long rides during the day, oftentimes I would come home and then do a long ride at night, have dinner and do another long ride at night. And that second training, that second ride that was really invaluable for something like this event where every day I was riding all day, having a break at dinner, and then riding all night too. So, yeah, so giving yourself the legitimacy, the time to actually get out and get some miles on is really, really important also. But you know, you don't need to do 40,000 miles to get ready for this, although it certainly helps.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Right.
What was your favorite food that you consumed? Or like if you had cycles of like when you could have something, it would just be like every 7 days I got to have X and or
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've got kind of a funny answer. I tend to eat real food rather than biker food. You know, like I'll boil up potatoes and just have baby little potatoes that I'll just pop in my mouth, or a real nectarine or whatever. The food that I probably went to most on this whole trip were ice cream sandwiches. I mean, it's just like, okay, anything I need is something cool, you know, a little fat, a little sugar right now. Uh, uh, Sorry to all my vegetarian friends, but my go-to dinner is a big piece of meat with a salad and some vegetables and some kind of carbohydrate like a potato or rice or something to go with that. I'm an O blood type, and somehow that red meat just really makes me feel much better in the morning, or you know, within a couple of hours. So that's pretty big. In the morning, I'm big on oatmeal and you know, and then any other kind of breakfast food. And then, of course, the breakfast sandwich with the egg and maybe the meat on an English muffin or something like that. At least two or three of those a day. And finally, peanut butter and honey sandwiches were just kind of a constant snack all day. I mean, I was easily eating 10,500 calories a day, and that equates to about 5 meals plus a lot of snacks in between. So
was that doable to kind for me to like consume 5 or 10 like that many calories? It's just like that blows my mind. Is that just you just get used to that?
yeah, another thing that I really like to do is eat, so that helps. So I like to ride my bike and I like to eat. So those two go well. The interesting thing is that there is, you know, a stomach distress that comes with eating that much food, and the and it this is where practice of riding long distances helps kind of figure out how that goes. And I tend to eat what would normally be breakfast foods, and then you know, some snacks, and then lunch foods, and then some snacks, and then dinner foods, and then desserts, kind of as the day progresses. But I might, you know, I'll definitely have a breakfast, a second breakfast, snack, you know, lunch, second lunch, snack. And but what I find is that I can, just by reading my body, it's like, what can I tolerate next? Do I need a fruit? Do I need a salt? Do I need a fat? Do I need a protein? And and there's a lot of times where you can overdo something. If you aren't paying attention, you might get too many sugars, for instance, or too many, even too many proteins all at once. You know, are really hard to digest. So it's really a matter of like just kind of feeling your body and saying, okay, what is it that I can eat next? What is it I can eat next? What is it I can eat next? And literally, it turns into a game of uh, the the more I eat, the better I ride, and the more I eat is directly a function of am I eating the right combination of things in the right order for my own body. The other thing that I find is that after a while, too many snacks are too many snacks, and the body just says, not doing any more. No more of that Gatorade, no more of those snacks. Get that stuff out of here. But then I sit down and have a real meal, like I say, maybe a steak, vegetables, potatoes, you know, something real solid, and all of a sudden my body says, "Oh, thank you very much. That's a reset. I'll just digest that for a couple hours here, and then we'll start over again." So yeah, and that does work pretty well. But you do need to read yourself pretty closely.
And then the other thing would be, so we kind of, yeah, so favorite food. And then what was your favorite part of the ride? So you've covered a lot of ground, and was there like just one scene or one morning, one evening, a sunset, just something that just was like, this
Boy,
is
there
why I ride? Like,
exactly. Um, the day I left Minneapolis, which is my hometown, I got to see a bunch of my friends and stuff along the roadway. There was a bunch of people that came out, And then I ended up riding down the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin, Iowa and Wisconsin. And that's just a gorgeous, it's the Mississippi River Valley. It's just gorgeous anyway. And I felt really jazzed. You know, I'd just seen my friends and I had passed the halfway mark. That was really a good ride that day. Um, it was pretty interesting over in the Dakota, in South Dakota, there was or Nebraska, I can't remember, I guess, there was a wonderful thunderstorm where there was a, a round flat cloud with a cumulus cloud stuck underneath it and then a round flat cloud underneath it. And there was just this raging lightning storm going on right within the cloud, you know, and it was all by itself in the sky. It was kind of almost like the clear sky with this one just raging thunderstorm that kind of followed me for about 4 hours in a row. That was really a gorgeous and kind of magical situation as well. There was also a moment down in Mississippi where I was riding at night, and the amount of nocturnal animals and insects and things that were going on there was just immense. And it was just like riding through these tunnels of sound. And sometimes it would get so loud it kind of reverberate in my head. And then you come out of them and then it'd be just okay, a little sound, and then it'd come on again. That was really, really, really awesome. I actually called my crew and told them to open up their windows and turn off everything and just take a look. And they said, we don't have to turn off anything. This is coming right through the truck, you know? So yeah, no, that was really magical as well. And there were others, but those were some of them for sure.
Well, very cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Keith.